for Wednesday, January 10th, 2018. We have a quorum and the agenda was properly posted?
Yes.
Okay, let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item next, number 4, is public appearances. Public's opportunity to speak about any subject that is not a specific agenda item. I don't think we have any
Nope.
today. Okay. Item 5, discuss and consider the minutes from the Plan Commission meeting of December 13th, 2017. Any comments, corrections, or additions?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Phyllis and second by John to approve minutes as presented. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Hey, Jennifer. Item 6 is discuss and consider the request from Chase Lumber Company for approval of a certified survey map to divide the existing 2.3 acre parcel at 123 East Cottage Grove Road into 2 parcels. You had, I believe, 5 attachments in your packet. Is the owner or the developer here tonight? If you could come forward and introduce yourself, sit here and you'll be on the camera.
I'm Julie Walther, and I'm here to represent Chase Lumber.
Okay. All right. And can you tell us what the plan is other than just the division of the lots?
That is the plan, is to divide the lots. We've got it up for sale, we've sold it. And I do have the 2 new owners that will be here
Okay.
that can answer any questions also on what's going to be happening with the 2 parcels.
Okay. Just for what it's worth, that little white thing above you is like a camera, so what you do on the table will be up there, so I didn't know if you had any pictures or anything.
Just what you guys have.
Okay. Okay. Any comments or questions from Plan Commission members?
Jack, you might want to let Aaron just go through his
Sure.
report and then turn it over to the board.
Okay, Aaron?
Yeah, and I believe Mike had some comments also. From a planning perspective, we're recommending the CSM be approved. It's a little bit of an interesting parcel in terms of the comprehensive plan. I mean, ultimately, I think the vision for the plan is to have that parcel be redeveloped into something new. But that's not on the table at this point, and splitting the parcel doesn't prevent that from happening in the future. So this really isn't inconsistent with the comp plan. In terms of the zoning, it's consistent with all of the buildings on the site already. Will still be consistent with the setbacks and everything for that zoning district, which is planned business. So we recommend approval, and Mike had a few comments as well.
Yeah, one that was just pen and ink, and one about the landscape ratio. I don't know if that's, my comment was inconsistent with what you would suggest at 25%. But the other thing was, once you subdivide the lot, it's asphalt continuing on into the other lot. So, normally that would have a 5-foot setback around the rear and sides of lot 1. Currently, it's to the lot line. The other comments I have are related to sewer and water, and I normally wouldn't have these comments just on a CSM, knowing that in the future normally they have to put them in, but since this was a previously served, lot 1 was previously served, lot 2 is not. There is a cap main on Main Street, or a cap service for sewer, but not for water. And we just have a strong preference that water come off of Cottage Grove Road rather than tearing into Main Street for that. There could be if they're minor services, it's possible that there's an adequate lead coming in that could be split into the 2 lots. If you need a larger one and you do have to tear into a road, it would be better if it's the rural section of Cottage Grove Road there that doesn't have curb and gutter. It has lighter traffic on it than Main Street. So those were my comments, and that would generally indicate that we need an easement along the side of lot 1 to get to lot 2.
Okay.
So
Because there is one common driveway at this point, one entrance.
Each lot will has a driveway. There is one onto Main Street for Lot 2 and one onto Cottage Grove Road for Lot 1.
Okay. Okay. All right.
I did talk to the owners on that also, the new owners and myself, all three of us are in agreement that we could do a cross-access easement through there, and everybody's fine with that. I did explain all the concerns, and they were fine with everything you just spoke about. And also even on the landscaping, he does have a plan for the building you're referring to where he is changing it and adding landscaping, which he can tell you about if you want. That's Dave, who will be changing that building.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Mike or Aaron?
That's it for me.
Okay. Any comments, questions, Matt?
Just a comment or a question for Mike and Aaron. Mike, when I look at your report and it states that Lot 2 appears to have less than 25% for the landscape surface ratio. I wasn't quite sure how that gets calculated, was one question that I have on that. How does that get calculated based upon the existing building?
It's pervious versus impervious surface, so it can be no more than, in this district, no more than 75% impervious.
And then what's really, I see as an issue for us to address tonight is if we agree to the CSM, we will be creating a use that does not conform to our zoning code because of the 25% landscaping provision, which I think is the issue that really needs to be addressed tonight, is whether that's something that's acceptable or not. Because we have an existing building, and the plan that's being presented, certainly they could have changed their plan to address the 25% if they wanted to. Or they could have brought forward a site, some sort of site plan to show the landscaping, but it's just not here. And when you look at the code, you know, number one, as a commission, we're supposed to review it, make sure it conforms with all the ordinances, including the zoning code ordinance, and the zoning code ordinance seems to just state what it is on the landscaping. And I'm wondering, let's say we just agree tonight to what Mike has as his comments. It would appear that we would be putting a provision on a CSM saying right up front, you don't meet the requirement. Lot 2 does not meet the requirement, but we're approving it even though you don't meet the requirement. So I'm wondering, how do we address that?
All right, one thing, you could have a time limit on how long it remained that way, to give them time in the spring, for instance, to remove certain pavements. And then if they have a plan coming forth, it'd be good to know, but you could have some of that asphalt brought down in size to increase the green space.
The amount of asphalt there currently, I believe, was there to accommodate semi-traffic probably and get trucks around the building. Is that accurate?
Right,
Okay.
correct. Yeah.
Well, I have a follow-up comment. I mean,
Yeah.
if you take the parcel as it is now, you have the pervious versus impervious surface, you're going to meet the requirement. Is that correct? Currently, when you look at the entire site, does it meet the landscaping requirement
As a single parcel, you mean?
as a single parcel?
As a single parcel, it does.
So that's the concern I see for us tonight, is we're creating something that does not meet our code by doing the CSM the way it's laid out. I mean, if the CSM was coming in and was showing actually having the line drawn so that it actually would have 25% of the unpaved surface being unpaved surface plus the building, I guess. If you drew the line so that you would have 25% that would be not be an impervious surface, you would meet the requirements, but it just does not on its face meet that. And if we put this provision on the CSM, I don't know how you put that would be an interesting question, I guess, for you, Lee. What would be the enforceability of putting a time frame provision on a CSM? I don't know that I've ever run across that.
Is there a solution to the problem?
So
I think the solution is that the line doesn't meet.
that's what I was thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking.
The line would need to be moved to get to a 25% impervious surface.
between lots 1 and 2.
Yeah, because otherwise we're creating a non-conforming use under the code.
Is that possible?
Well, it's possible, but you're not supposed to do it, to create a non-conforming use.
Correct.
I mean, Jennifer just asked, is it possible to move the line and, or is it possible for rather to create a non-conforming use? Sure, it's possible, but you're not supposed to do it.
So what's the solution?
Well-
Right.
Follow up on that, we don't know what the really, we have not heard what the use even is. So we can't even address that without having some additional information in front of us to know what the use would be.
Are you able to speak to
Yeah,
that?
Mike Hawkins with Snyder and Associates. I was just coming up to suggest to Julie that when we drew these lot lines on the CSM, it was just kind of based on the pavement. We
Mhm.
didn't go through the zoning code and check that landscape ratio. So had we done that originally, I think we just would have adjusted these lot lines so that it was in conformance, so you don't have that issue.
Okay.
And I guess I'm asking the willingness to just make that modification and increase
Do
the
you
size.
guys have a problem with that?
It's 2,200 square feet or something like that is,
Changing the lot line on that extra lot?
Could we saw cut some of the asphalt on the sidelines?
any way you want to do it.
Yeah.
Any way you want to do it, it's just you
Part
gotta,
of the building will be completely renovated, it'll have green space in the front, coming all the way out, so.
So the finished product will conform.
Jack, which really, if they're gonna speak, they should come
Yep.
to the.
So-
If you wouldn't mind, come on up to the podium and introduce
These are the
yourself.
two guys that are purchasing it.
Sure.
so-
Okay.
So, I'm Dave, the owner of New Tech
Okay.
Painting, I'll be in lot, or building
Two.
lot 2.
Yeah.
So my plan was, we are renovating the inside right now, but in the spring, the whole outside of the building will be completely transformed, and we will have green space brought out from the front of the building out. And then, as Mike was saying, we'll saw cut back some of the sides of the building and add green space in there as well.
Okay. Sounds
So our-
like,
that's in
I
our
think
plan.
along with some plantings.
Right, plantings, will.
Okay. Sounds like a straightforward solution. I mean, if you're going to get rid of some pavement and add green space.
Yeah, it's gonna, it'll look different.
Yeah.
I guess that brings up a question. I don't see it as being straightforward at this point with the CSM. I mean, once they currently they have a right to use the entire parcel if they purchase it. If we split it the way it is, what control do we have, or what can we put on tonight to prevent them from continuing to use the use in the existing building if they do not follow through and put the landscaping in place? Because on the we don't have a site plan in front of us, we don't have a landscape plan in front of us, we don't have any of that in front of us. And so we would need to figure out how to do that.
And the issue becomes enforcement. The issue becomes, well, we're going to cut back X amount of parking lot or whatever, of asphalt, and then, how do we know that doesn't occur? So that's really our issue is, conceptually it makes sense, but now how do we maintain our control over it once you guys do the sale?
I would be fine with a strict timeline. I mean, I plan on doing it first of spring. As soon as the weather turns, we will have people in there immediately taking care of it. If you give me a deadline, it'll be done.
Can we do that?
Well, we can, but Fred was whispering the fence in my ear, just up the street, and, that becomes the issue is, what happens when the best of intentions are, tonight, we'll do this, no problem. And then, I don't know, something happens and it can't be done. And so I think our concern from a village point of view is this is what we need, and how do we guarantee that indeed will happen?
I have one thought on how it could happen, is that there would be a requirement put on the CSM that it cannot be recorded until that provision is actually met.
That's a good idea.
And then, at that point, then you would know it has been done. So that means you may not be able to do this until, summer, or whenever you would get this actually done. Or you need to bring back whatever plan you want to get it, you want to change your line in the future, whatever, you guys would take a look at it. That's
Would just a plan, just a landscaping plan do it? Or-
I think the CSM really should be showing what.
Yeah.
There's a site plan
I mean,
review
I think the
process
CSM
we'd have to
needs
go
to change.
through.
Reflect the CSM that's recorded, I would think should reflect your lands, the 25% impervious surface, which this one does not. And so I'm sure Mike Hawkins' firm can certainly lay that out and do that.
Yeah, an approval contingent upon the recording that these be compliant, either working out a lot line adjustment so they can close right away and get started, and or waiting until the work's done and then recording the CSM. The two options.
An approval with that contingency, I think, would be fine. That we have a new CSM brought forward so you can record it.
I know they're looking to close soon, so the decision on whether they move the lot lines or wait, I guess we can put that upon themselves as far as
Okay.
making that
Wait,
decision.
so they can do the work without site plan approval? That
Remove-
seems like we're opening a whole nother can of worms.
I think we'd be just removing impervious areas, all we'd be doing to be in compliance.
Well,
And nothing beyond
Before it's
that.
recorded?
right.
Yeah.
I mean, that-
Before it's recorded?
That would be one way of creating more green spaces to remove some of the pavement that's there. Because if it was shown as green space right now, we wouldn't receive the comment. It would have 75%. So if we go out there and remove pavement right now and put topsoil in and seed it in the spring.
Right, but you can remove pavement right now as one lot. You can't remove pavement, I don't think, for two lots, because it's not approved to do that. It's not approved for two separate sites. It's approved as one site right now.
We have a minor site plan amendment process, it's just a staff level approval. Just removing the asphalt could go through that process. The larger site plan with the landscaping and everything we can bring back here. That's,
That's fine, I'm just asking, because...
Yeah, so if they decide they don't want to move the lot lines from what's shown on here, and they want to remove the pavement, we'd go through that process prior to recording the CSM. Yep.
CSM requires the village clerk to sign, so you could hold that.
So then it would be a motion contingent upon both lots meeting the landscaping requirements with the new CSM to be recorded to that effect, right?
I'm not really sure how we want to address it.
You're approving the CSM, but it can't be recorded until certain conditions have been satisfied.
The issue I see with that is that this will be a different CSM than what we had before us.
Mhm.
I don't know. I guess we could do that, but we would need to make it a condition, and then the CSM that's going to come back in will have to be reviewed by staff. Is that correct, Aaron?
Right.
To make sure that it reflects that there's 25% impervious surface.
So Mike, you'll have the responsibility, or I assume you're going to be doing the work to bring back a revised CSM for Aaron and Mike to review. And it can't be recorded until you reach those percentages.
That's what we're looking for, the flexibility to do, yes.
Yeah. And do you guys have an idea of what you're going to do, or?
Pretty much, yeah. We just got to get it on paper.
A follow-up question that was brought before by you about putting in this easement. Where would this access easement be located?
I think the access easement would be just because we're within 5 feet of the property line, that they're acknowledging the sharing of that pavement, crossing the property, or to try to address that comment, I guess.
Mike, that's an image. You can see the image on there if you want.
Yeah.
If you want to show.
There you go.
Yeah.
This, I'm assuming, Mike, that, well, it doesn't work on the screen now.
Or you can just point on the.
This pavement edge runs right along that property line. That's how we chose we just went along the pavement, and not knowing the landscaping requirement at the time, we probably just would have widened it out either 20 feet here, or 5 feet here, 15 feet here, or something to get to that landscape. So that decision needs to be made between these guys, whether they want to do that, or we're going to go through site plan amendment process as a one lot deal to remove some of the pavement and then come back with a CSM. I mean, that's, so the 5 foot, Mike, I'm assuming was driven by this pavement edge right
Yeah.
there.
The easement was a different issue, but yes.
The cross-access easement was our way of.
That's for water and
That's
sewer
right.
service.
Yeah, it's-
Water service.
The water service itself, we need to choose how to get through here. We would show that on the CSM.
That you're bringing back.
Bring it back as part of the recording.
Okay.
But the access easement was how we're trying to address the 5-foot setback on the pavements.
Question, I can't see it real well, but from where I'm sitting here, but Mike, are you talking about, which section are you saying that you're talking about?
This is a pavement edge that runs right along there and it comes back around. So this, adding some grass area
I
here
see.
and or a look combination of here and here.
And the access would come in the front?
We're just trying to address the fact that, right here the pavement crosses. Right in here, it's all within 5 feet.
See, I thought the 5 feet was actually
So that it's part of.
here, because this is part of your lot here, so I thought this was the 5 feet.
Well, that'd be another reason just to go 5 feet off the edge of pavement and be in compliance with both.
It'd probably be best to just walk up there to do this so we know what's going on.
Okay.
All right. This,
Thanks.
this pavement edge right here where I'm drawing the red dot, that's the pavement edge that if we offset that 5 feet, we'll be taking care of that setback requirement. And it would also be increasing the size of the lot. And I guess I was looking at, when we drew these lines, there was nothing magical about putting these lines in other than we were just trying to keep that pavement area within that lot. Expanding that a little bit would be my suggestion, or if we weren't here talking about it, we should have done that to begin with.
Sure.
And then we wouldn't have the zoning compliance issues.
Question, I guess what I'm hearing then is really a decision that, as the applicant, you need to make tonight about what you want to do, and whether you're wanting us really to, whether you want to bring back another CSM that shows all that, or if you want us to consider putting restrictions on this existing CSM, because if we do that, in the existing CSM, I can't see that we can really move the lines. I mean, the lines are going to
Right.
stay where they're at. We can't start moving lines tonight on this existing CSM. to
What's
get
the
another 5
percentage,
feet.
20%?
It's 75% total, you only,
Total.
and we need to get 5 more percent is the
Okay,
green
so
area.
my suggestion would be, so that's the pavement line here. So there's already green space here, correct? So if we saw cut, this is already green space here. If this was to get saw cut all the way back, and this all turned into green space here, would that meet the extra 5%?
Well, it would meet that, but then we still have this pavement edge along.
So the green
this-
space
that's a
has to
5
be on the line?
Well, the 5-foot setback is another issue.
Oh, the 5-foot setback.
Pavement setback. I was trying to address both of them.
And that could be
Can't
saw cut
solve
also.
that.
But you don't even need the cross-access easement if you have a 5-foot setback, so that's why
Avoiding this agreement.
if you just would have taken this map to those guys without these square footages on it, we probably wouldn't have the problem right now.
So you could bring
I don't want
back,
to make you feel bad or anything, but.
Yeah, I wonder who gave me all these square foot.
Who gave you the map?
Yeah, who gave me that map?
Adam did, he's not here.
Let's blame Adam.
so if we were to approve it, it would be on the condition of a new CSM then that shows compliance?
Well,
Is that-
unless they can agree to move them a
Right,
certain.
yeah, I think that's the either or that they need to
Right.
tell us tonight.
Okay.
So as far as
I got
them
it.
keeping
Saw cut.
getting done.
Yeah.
It's got to be the way, because I mean, both are, yeah. We could saw cut the back of that,
If-
get your 5-foot easement.
If you want to leave the lot lines, we'll be back next month with a new CSM.
Oh, is that what it is?
That's what's the decision you
Yep.
can make. If you wait a month, we'll come back with a new CSM.
You don't want to wait the month, then their choice is.
We'll ask for approval, subject to moving the lot lines to comply with the 5-foot setback and the landscape ratio that's needed.
Tie that to the approval of a minor site plan amendment that shows the pavement.
Right.
Be the way to go.
So that'd be the way to go, we just gotta agree to take care of that.
You know, we'll come back with a minor site plan amendment
Right.
showing what's going to be done to the existing lot, which then will make it, these two lots
So
comply
my
as drawn.
plan, we just gotta we'll get a plan together.
Yep.
Okay.
And Aaron, that could be done at staff level, that plan is?
Yeah, just the pavement removal, Ken, the larger plan with the landscape and everything would have to come back here as a full site.
That might be a little cleaner from the plan commission point of view, so they can actually see what.
I guess I'd like to really understand what's going on, because if we're moving any of the lines between the two lots, Eric, can that be done as a minor
I think they're talking about keeping the lot
They're
lines.
keeping the
the
That's
same.
what I'm saying, keep the lot lines.
Yeah.
Then we can put
Change
some
the
conditions
pavement
on it
line.
that staff could actually work through, like having the 25% impervious surface, but it has to stay within the lot lines.
Just by saw cutting pavement.
And then the setback.
And then there'll
And
be
the
a-
setback.
Yep. And then there'll be a third step, which once they own it, they will have their own site plan review with a new landscape plan and showing everything that they're planning on doing. Right,
Okay.
For each individual site.
right. Which they could do at the same meeting if they get it ready.
Okay. Any other?
So door number B is what you're choosing?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the CSM with the condition that you're going to amend it. Staff is going to approve that amendment.
We're saying that it can't be recorded until they get a minor site plan approval showing enough pavement being removed to be in compliance with.
And is there, am I missing anything?
We had the
Setback.
comments from
I think
Aaron
the
and
comments.
Mike.
And then
Yeah,
the
the
comments from Aaron and Mike.
Yeah, the engineering
Included.
regarding water and
Yes.
some planning. Okay, so we have a motion, and I'll second that, and that is to approve this based upon the owners submitting a minor site plan amendment to staff and staff approval to ensure compliance with the impervious surface requirement. Does that work, Nick?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's going to include all of Mike's comments, although we know that Mike's comment dealing with the 25% is what Jennifer was bringing up, and that's
Great.
has to be addressed. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Wait.
I'm sorry?
And we're not attaching a time limit to this? I'm still concerned about recording the site plan.
It can't be
It can't
It'll be
recorded.
recorded.
I realize that, but we're giving them 3 years to do this, or?
No, we're gonna remove the pavement prior to the pavement would have to be removed prior to the recording, I'm assuming. The work would have to be done, right?
Would all of this be done before the end of, I don't know, June, July, the end of the year?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think there should be
So
a
I'm just
date
trying
put in there.
I'm just trying to come up with a date that works for you and for the village. That's all.
I can feel July.
July.
End of July?
Yep.
Okay, so motion accepts end of July as a timetable?
Absolutely.
Okay, and second agrees. Any other comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes, thank you. All right, presentation by Tim Olson and Mike Calkins of potential Whedon Olson subdivision on Vilas Road for the purpose of providing informal feedback to the applicants. No action to be taken on this agenda item. And again, yeah, if you can use the camera, it would make it easier for everybody to see it.
Mike Hawkins with Snyder and Associates, and
I'm Tim.
Right.
Hi.
we're here to get your feedback. We've had some staff meetings, or meetings with staff, and got some feedback. We're kind of limited on the proposed project. It's been recently brought into the urban service area, so we're looking at moving forward to the next step after the annexation has taken place, and we're here proposing a small cul-de-sac with the existing lot and two other large lots, lots P4, P5, to be added, which will have a shared driveway access easement so that we can get back there use the existing driveway that runs up to the Wyden property, Wyden House now, and have a branch off of that to serve the other two lots. And then further subdividing along Vilas Road. I believe those are drawn at about 125 feet wide right now, so there could be a side entry garage so people can get turned around and come out onto Vilas Road, nose first, and so they won't be backing into Vilas Road, because the intent will do with the lot width. Stormwater for the cul-de-sac and the improvements of what would be done, the impervious area along Vilas Road. There's some desire to reroute stormwater from the east side of Vilas Road to the west side, is my understanding. There's some flooding concerns, so anything we can do to help that by taking water to the west side and potentially coming down the cul-de-sac, taking the cul-de-sac and maybe eliminating some of that flooding on the east side, but having that run along the wetland down into a pond system that's located in this finger next to this dashed white line that's on here is the wetland delineation. So there'll be a 75-foot setback on there for any building to be placed, would have to be 75 feet away from that, and that gives us an area to drain the water down and meet the stormwater requirements of the pond in this location. The two big lots there's a lot of open space there. We're not sure where the houses would sit, but I think the best way for stormwater to be handled on the two large lots is whatever they're adding for impervious area, they'd be dealing with their own stormwater on each of those two individual lots. So trying to pick where it's going to go right now and not know the impervious areas, it's kind of a guess.
You were thinking possibly culvert under Vilas Road to divert the stormwater? Is it?
There was a,
There's a culvert there now, but it's a little high for where the pony farm is. And that does get underwater, and so with this opportunity of development, there is an opportunity to set that culvert deeper. There's going to be
Okay.
opening of Vilas Road for utilities at times and connections, so that's a good time to consider that.
and we understand there'd be a bike path on portion in front of lots 1, 2, out to the park, and maybe sidewalk or a bike path through the rest of it. But knowing that there's a sidewalk or bike path along Vilas Road, and then one half of the expansion of Vilas itself into an urban section is what we're anticipating being part of the developer agreement.
Okay, any comments from Aaron or anything else on?
Yeah, this area is planned neighborhood in the comp plan. Tim and his development group also control the 35 acres to the south of this property. It was all brought into the urban service area together. Originally, this northern part had some duplex units in it to kind of address the planned neighborhood ratios that we look for. The soils aren't really suitable for that, I guess, in the northern portion, so we're looking at moving any duplex development down to the future phase to the south. I think I like the larger lots in the interior. When we looked at housing data a while back, we kind of saw that the very low end of affordability and the very high end of affordability are kind of what's missing in the village.
Mhm.
And I think there's some chance, for high-end lots there, certainly in the interior. I'm not really a fan of the zigzagging connections to the cul-de-sac right now.
Yeah, that was drawn to try to keep the existing, it's a really nice shed out there with lot 6. I mean, I told Tim we probably need to try to address if we want to straighten those lot lines out, whether that owner of lot 4 gets that shed or the owner of lot 5 gets that shed, or if it gets removed.
We might just move it.
Might just move it. So I don't know that those are final in our mind. What we're trying to show is there's a 50-foot frontage on right-of-way, public right-of-way that's needed for each single-family lot. And so we've taken that 50-foot frontage and then tried to develop as many larger lots as we could back in that area, which is just the 2 of them. So.
Tim, can you speak to the market and the kind of the approximate home values that you're looking at here?
Well, probably 800,000 on up, and it's probably going to end up with a number of lots between 11 and 12 million dollars worth of
Tim,
tax.
how many lots are going to be developed?
14, I think there is.
Okay.
One of them's existing, so
13.
13 additional ones.
Any comments from the Planning Commission?
The Park Commission looked at a concept of this a while back, earlier on. They felt with Bakken Park across the street and the bike trail connection that'll be built across Vilas at this location, that they didn't really see the need for park space within the development itself, at least in this northern portion. I think they're doing a good job of minimizing disruption to the slopes and the woodlands. They would have to open up building pads along Vilas Road, but other than that, over the Drublin there, that would all remain as is.
It would be our intent, there's a 40-foot building setback, and then provide another 100 feet or 110 feet for the house in the lot, in the rear yard of some type, 20 to 30 feet. So we would look to put a restriction on removing the trees and on anything beyond that as part of the plating process, so that they stay protected.
I like the lot width because you don't want cars backing out onto that stretch of road. I think coming out forward is the way to go. Any other comments or questions?
When we went through the,
Go ahead there.
when we went through the Shady Grove process, I know the idea of neighborhood meetings came up, and we've talked to Tim and Mike about that, and kind of suggested they should probably invite their neighbors over, and I think they know most of them already. It's a little more remote than, Shady Grove, for example, where there was an existing subdivision, but just running it by all the folks around you and getting their feedback.
We're working on that right now.
My question is, all those lots on the eastern portion, they have access right to Vilas, is that what I understand? So in and out, what is the speed limit in through there? Is it 45, 35, or it doesn't go to 25 up until you get closer to the train tracks, right? So my question would be, I wouldn't say it's a blind curve, but it's not, you're doing 45 and you have those driveways.
One of the questions, and I talked with the county supervisor about this, apparently there's a mechanism where you don't have a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit on one side of the road on the town side and a 25 on our side. That would just be really a bad situation.
Right.
So that there is a mechanism to lower that. I would have to refer to what she sent me to tell you exactly what that is, but I think that would solve that problem.
Well, that 45 miles an hour right there, you got the kids park,
Yep.
you got the bike trail coming in, you got the
Parking lot,
rugby
yeah.
field, and you got people going 45.
And that means they
So
do
who's
55.
asking for it?
Yeah. Right.
It was our understanding when we talked to staff and it was going to be an urban section or expanded into an urban section that the speed limit would be coming down with that
Right.
development. So.
That would make sense.
Yeah, I agree. And then my second question is, if it does get annexed into the village, is there going to be curb, gutter, and sidewalk along Vilas, along that portion of the development?
Is that a requirement on this
And then
annexation?
who would be responsible for that, is my second
Part of
question.
the subdivision and part of the developer's agreement would be urban on their side of the development. And then that's where, right now, it's not finalized, but the trail to Madison is to their north, heading west. And then along Vilas Road, along their frontage, we talked to them about, the bike path through the village, kind of coming down through their frontage. And I think they kind of, embraced it, but agreed with it, so.
And this has been annexed.
It's already-
Already has been
yeah,
annexed.
Yep. So it would be urban on that side of the road.
With sidewalk, gutter.
Sidewalk or bike path. It'd be an off-road bike path.
Okay. Similar to Glacial Drumlin going up that way? That kind of
Yes,
pavement path?
along Cottage Grove Road.
Or Cottage Grove Road,
On-
sorry,
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay. This is a presentation, so it's not an action item, but this is the time to ask any other questions, but so far, so good, I would.
Yeah, well, I guess we'd like to come back next month with a preliminary plat, and
Sure.
we got some work to do to get to that point, but, other than wrestling with these jagging property lines here, but let Tim in here and get comfortable with how we're going to propose that, but other than that, I think we're all on the same page of what I've heard, so.
Sounds good.
Just update you on the timeline. It is you do have to submit 30 days in advance of the hearing, so you guys can.
I said March, didn't I?
It was implied.
Okay. All right. Sounds good, thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Item 8 is discuss and consider notice requirements within village zoning ordinance. The purpose of this agenda item is to determine whether or not to direct staff to draft a potential ordinance amendment. No ordinance amendment will be acted upon at this meeting. There is an attachment in your packet. I'll let Lee talk about the implications, or Aaron talk about it also.
Well, since Aaron did all the work, I'm going to let him talk about it.
So this came up at Casey's, some members of the public gave their input that they felt our notice requirements were maybe not sufficient currently for a zoning or conditional use permit and also a land division. We send a notice to any property owner within 200 feet of the subject parcel's boundary. We took a look at that, within the staff report here, looking at 9 other municipalities in Dane County, seeing what their requirements were for both the zoning change and a conditional use permit. That 200 feet was by far the most common. That was about in half the scenarios. There is some precedent for having a 300-foot radius. I guess I'm fine either way. I think the more the merrier at a public hearing. If you guys wanted to expand it, that's fine. I know at the last meeting we also talked about alternate means like putting notices on Facebook and things like that that might achieve the same result even better than changing the ordinance. But
And on our website and things like that. I'm just,
Yeah.
so the notice you're talking about is actual hard copy snail mail?
it's a letter that gets made.
Okay. All right.
So social media is a really good option. I mean, I know, but it's
Well,
where people find.
It's a good
things.
option, but it's not really incorporated in the statutes now. So, I mean, you're kind of stuck with the measurements until the legislature catches up with social media. I mean, that doesn't mean that you can't do it, but, and all of you who have been on the planning commission or other, you know that when someone doesn't like a project, they didn't get enough notice, or there
Right.
wasn't,
Absolutely.
and so this is an attempt to say,
100%.
well, okay, what would be a good way to go, and from the plan commission and from the public's point of view.
I took a look
Just so I understand, the one that was just, even though it's not real, but there probably are no property owners within 300 feet of the Olson
Wyden also.
Wyden thing, are there?
There's township ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, the town residents get noticed.
Okay.
So yeah. this
I'm just
doesn't-
trying to make sure that people are covered and that we're not
Yeah.
leaving someone out. I just,
Right, this isn't exclusive to village residents.
Okay.
so- okay.
And
It's
the,
really-
and the municipality any municipality within 1,000 feet gets noticed as well, so the town itself would be noticed. And then they could,
Sure.
they can do their
They
due
want.
diligence and letting other people know if they want to.
okay.
I went back and took a look at Casey's, and expanding from 200 to 300 feet only added about 5 or 6 additional parcels.
So it's not a terrible amount of extra work or postage or anything?
In that case, I mean, if it's a big subdivision and it's parcels all around, it might, but
It's came up over the years a lot. So
There's never-
to increase it to 300 feet, I think would be a good gesture.
I'd like to see it more than 300
I think there's always going to be, there's never going to be enough,
feet. Well,
right?
I'd double it.
To 4 or 6.
From the people that
You're the only
want it.
community that does that, but,
Well, that doesn't,
yeah.
I mean, we take a lot of heat from our citizens that aren't noticed about it, so.
Any other comments or questions on the notice requirements?
I mean, 200 feet isn't a lot of distance.
I think the more people you can get notified, the better. I don't know that snail mail is that increasing the ordinance is the right way to do it. I mean, if it's a goodwill gesture, I don't know how much does it cost to amend.
I think it's
the ordinance.
unfortunately the only legal way, but I agree snail mail is not a good one.
Right, it's the only legal way, but we can still be putting those notices on our webpage
Yeah.
and,
Mhm.
and I think you'll get more people notified.
Well, remember that,
way.
like when they say class 2 notice or class 3 notice, you're talking about all those notices in the newspaper, which as you get older become increasingly difficult to see. And it's what newspaper gets put in. So sometimes the idea of notice is more of an illusion than it is the reality. So
100%.
I'm sure that with the developments you are involved with, you've run into that.
I think, just like the project that we heard tonight, or that's coming forward, based on what we've heard in the last few projects that have been coming forward, I would not be surprised if we don't have people throughout the village that are focused on this because of the additional traffic.
Right.
Impacts people who live in the town, the impacts on Violet's Road, all those sorts of things. I think I suggest that we start really thinking about making it a requirement that when folks are bringing forward developments of X size, that they are required to have informational meetings, and that we do the best we can to get that out, publicize that for everyone that's in the village so that they can attend those meetings, so that if there are issues that can be addressed before they come to us, that's great. So they can address the concerns, if it's trees or if it's traffic or whatever it is.
You know, that's not a bad idea, because sometimes when it gets to the village board, or to the planning commissioner or whatever, it has the illusion of already been approved, or this is
Right.
already happening. So if you're having those preemptive meetings, you diffuse a lot of tension.
A lot of questions can be answered before it gets here.
Absolutely.
John, can I give a suggestion? There used to be a village newsletter mailed to each resident when it stopped, probably 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. Is there any way we can, and I don't know if we continue to publish one and just post it on the website, but is there any way we can sign up and get it electronically via email to save on postage? I don't know if we still do a village newsletter.
We've talked about this 100 times, right, at budget meetings at the village board. And I mean, we are getting, the Herald is publishing.
Yeah, we do
that now.
we do 2 a year, and they're rather substantial, and they get sent to everyone in the paper.
Yeah.
But people can sign up and create an account on our website.
Okay, that's what
And
John was
they-
That's what I'm looking at, like a
Right.
listserv.
Yes, and so they can choose what they want to receive. So if they want to receive agendas, minutes, publications, that type of thing, they can pick what they receive, and they can get it either by a text message or an email.
Okay.
So they can do that by creating an account on our website.
And that's just published twice a year, the newsletter, the village newsletter.
Also, just to pick up on what Mick was saying, if you, 274-16D talks about informational public meetings, and it says owner, developer, or annexing party hold as many informational meetings or open houses with the community as determined by the plan commission. So, I mean, right now, we have the ability to say, you need to do this over a specific area or the whole area, and just make it mandatory, because I think Shady Grove was really the first time that had come up.
Right.
But the process is really what is kind of a concern, because when Shady Grove, when we hear about it is at preliminary plat.
Yep.
And that's a big deal, preliminary plat, because if that gets approved, as we know, then the final plat that meets the preliminary plat requirements should be approved. It seems like this notice provision should be something that we require staff to let them know. Before you bring this forward, you need to have X meeting, public meeting, so that there can be comments on your project, so that when it comes forward to preliminary plat, that's already been done. So hopefully that information's already been received, and hopefully some of it gets instilled into their preliminary plat, and, to meet some of the concerns of the community before it ever gets to us.
So meeting before preliminary plat.
I'm thinking that's where it should happen, would be before it even gets to us. Because, yeah, correct, we can always say, but at that point, if we're going to try to approve it that evening, it's really too late
Mhm.
to have the informational meeting. Now, Shady Grove, we did, I think, we must have,
Well, we suggested it, remember, and then they offered, or they had a meeting, but then some of the people couldn't be there, and he tried to accommodate, or said he tried to accommodate, and they didn't feel that.
but we had already approved the preliminary plat at that point. So really, at that time, it was a final plat going forward, and if you met the requirements of the preliminary plat,
So what about for conditional use permits and site plans as well with those?
I don't,
Just every
I'm open to whatever
Okay.
folks think. I mean, I don't know if every small little subdivision, or I should say conditional use or whatever, would need to, or even site plan needs to get that kind of input, but
Mhm.
the ones that have impacts, broader impacts, yeah, I
Sure.
think those.
I was just bringing up because, Casey's wouldn't fall under, if we do it for plats, obviously that they
Right.
wouldn't have necessarily done a meeting under this discussion.
So what, At this point, we're at notice at 400 feet, informational meeting before preliminary plat, and what was the other? Oh, the website sign up that John had mentioned, the ability to get electronic notification.
Just one other question. Some of the other jurisdictions I've looked at, not looking at it for this specific purpose, but they'll actually have a listing of all of the land development applications that are currently being addressed in some way. I don't think we don't, do we have something like that, Aaron, currently that someone can go on our site and just see?
You can get the meeting packets through the agenda, but not as far
No,
ahead.
there's no,
That's
we aren't
something
tracking any of them or the status or any of that online.
That's something you work with Lisa on. We can do that.
So we're looking at 2 revisions to the code to bring back. And maybe
Yeah.
more depending upon as we looked at the code.
It sounds like maybe the distance is a revision, and because we already addressed the public meetings, maybe that's more of a policy that we write up.
Well, just to play devil's advocate, I don't want someone to say, well, I didn't understand I had to do this. And I think that you tried to do the right thing at Shady Grove and people were still upset. And I can understand because they said, well, we already had plans. And so maybe we can play with that language a little bit.
Okay. Anything else on this one? So you just need direction in form of a motion?
We don't need a motion.
You don't need a motion.
They're gonna come back.
Yeah, we're not
Put it on future agenda.
We're not
items.
going anywhere.
formally approving anything at this meeting.
Okay. Put that on future agenda items then. All right, comments from commission members, Don?
Nothing.
Okay, Nick?
No.
Okay. The only thing, just in general, I was at the school facilities meeting last night with John, and I had to leave before it was done, but there's a lot of options. They've got to narrow down a little bit, but I guess I'd like to just share that informational packet. I'm just going to give a hard copy to Lisa to distribute, just so everybody that's at the plan and village board level kind of knows, gets an update as to where they're at. And, it's about 20 pages long, but good reading. Phyllis? Jennifer?
I look forward to that read.
John?
Just one question with the new stoplights out on Highway N and School Road. I just got a question. Why is the stoplights on Highway N, the pole goes like 10 or 15 feet higher than the actual lights?
There's street lights to go on those yet.
Yet to go up there?
Yep.
Okay, I got questions.
There's a
Okay.
custom piece that TAPCO's fabricating.
I figured as much for like future expansion or whatever it may be, but okay, thanks.
Right.
So you're not bringing it up?
I'll bring it up future
No.
agenda items.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Okay. All right.
We'll do it under future agenda.
Yeah, so future agenda items would be item 8, as we talked about. Anybody else? John?
Yep, I would have 2 items if we could possibly have, I don't know if it's Lee or Jack, you as the village president, but kind of the charter of the planning commission, what goes forward to the village board. I know it's all recommendations, and the last 2 recommendations, one was a tie. So if ties go forward, or if it ties and dies here at the planning commission, I'm kind of I don't speak legalese, and I kind of did a little bit of research, but parliamentary procedure on what goes forward to the village board.
Okay.
And then what happens from there. And the second item I would ask for from the village board is if we could have like 2 or 3 goals and objectives for future planning for this commission to consider. Because like I said, one vote was a tie, the other one was approved, but then it was disapproved. So, I mean, I don't want our work to be minimized here, because there's a lot of time and effort, not only staff, but the developers, the landowners, and the commission members that do their homework. What are the goals, 2 or 3 goals and the objectives from the village board for the planning commission to consider in 2018, if that's possible?
I can work with Matt and Aaron on that for next time.
I would like to just expand on that a little bit, because I had the same idea. But the only like what I don't understand is basically one subdivision got approved because we had preliminary plat approval, so we really couldn't deny it. How can the village board then deny it? So I want If it was illegal for us to deny it, how can it be legal for the board to do
What-
It wasn't in that.
What are we talking?
Which one?
it? Isn't that what happened?
Shady Grove got approved, Casey's due to various reasons, and I fully appreciate adhering to the comprehensive plan. It did get approved against the recommendation of the planning commission. But my issue is the comprehensive plan is adhered to for certain instances. You take Shady Grove and everything from the street size, some ordinances with the park size, and I get it's, phase 1 or phase 2. But then you take a look at CVS, and the parking lot is right along the road, and they're serving alcohol, and they're right next to the road. So I'm trying to get some direction from the village board as to what we should be looking at as a planning commission. So our time, effort, energy, as commission members, the staff, the landowners and developers, we're not kind of spinning our wheels for something that may get turned around at the board level.
Okay. Fair enough.
But yeah, Fred, Shady Grove, the preliminary, the board approved the preliminary plat and the final plat.
Okay. Any comments from Lee, Matt?
No.
Okay, Aaron? Mike? Anything? Okay. All right, we're good for future agenda items. Item 11, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, motion and second to adjourn, non-debatable. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? We're adjourned.